Hello everybody, welcome to our first demo video. This one is a goodie. We all know that Exchange Online 365 Mail doesn't do backups. It has a retention strategy. This poses a problem for many industries, including Mustek. For compliance models, POPI, ISO 27001, a backup needs to exist. So I feel that this skill set transfer will be a requirement for most Acronis admins. It's a bit of a lengthy video, but it's full of some golden nuggets. Nicholas Keane is going to demo and assist us. The great thing about the demo is that you get a good overview of the protection console and management console and other interesting feature sets that we will dive into in later videos. We will see how to get started, how to onboard, how to attach mailboxes to Acronis for backup, how to upload and attach individual boxes, group of boxes, specific mail folders. These are all critical skills for an Acronis administrator. Enjoy the step-by-step demo, and I will see you again for the next video in the series.
Well, thank you very much, Ax, for hosting me for this demo session. We're going to run through a number of scenarios, such as onboarding Microsoft 365, why you need it, why you want it. I'm going to take a look at some of the disaster recovery side of things as well, and just take you through some general aspects of the platform, what's important, what to focus on, what you can sort of not look at in too much detail, just so that you can optimize and get on board very quickly whilst getting familiar with a particular platform.
Nick, most of our clients are all about like, hey, how do we get started on Acronis? We are now consuming, and one of the first things they're all about is how do we attach 365 mailboxes. We all know that 365 does retention policies, it does backups, and for multiple security frameworks and auditing purposes and archive purposes, it's a requirement that a company or a host has a backup, and it's definitely one of the feature sets that's like really, really important. So yeah, I think you can just navigate the console for me and just help me and assist me in just getting M365 email backup up and running. That'll be cool. It will be a great.
Yeah, perfect. So as you said, it's a very useful thing to have mailbox backup. Now, obviously, Microsoft runs a very excellent service with their Microsoft 365 solution. But they clearly state that they are not responsible for your data. They are responsible for keeping their service up and running and make sure that you have access to their service. That's where they take the service, but the data is your responsibility as the customer. And so that you've got to make sure that that's protected from people doing accidental deletions or accidental corruptions, or even deliberate and malicious deletions and corruptions. And that's where something like backing up your Microsoft 365 solution can come in very handy for protection. And so with Acronis, you can back up your mailboxes, your SharePoint sites, your Teams, as well as your OneDrive data as well. Great thing about it, you can back it up, keep it for as long as you need it, and also recover it across different users and across different organizations if you want to. So if you want to migrate data from one organization to another, you can leverage this platform. And also you can use it for archiving former employees' data. So someone leaves, you want to reassign the seat to someone else, to the new employee, change the mail address, etc. But you want to keep that old employee's data. You can take a backup and then deactivate their license, and then assign the new license to someone else, continue working with the platform. So there's a lot of scenarios where this does come into effect as well. Now, obviously, the first thing to do is to get up and running is you want to have a customer ready to onboard. So let's just start with the process of creating a new customer. So we go to the new tab at the top, we click customer. We've got this nice little wizard that we're going to run through here. We give the customer a name. So I'm just going to call it email backup customer, just for this demonstration purposes. I'm going to leave it in trial mode. Just to touch very briefly on here.
Can you just show me what other modes we've got there?
So we can go email, or we can go straight into production. I'm sorry, okay, cool. Email trial. We can leave it on trial mode, or we go straight into production.
Cool.
Now, benefit of trial is obviously you are not charged for the customer's usage while in trial. So you can obviously offer a trial, or you can just have the 30 days of free usage on your side as well if you want, right? We then go into the management mode. This is something that's very important to take into account because the management mode controls what level of access you as the partner get to the customer account. By default, it's set to self-service, which blocks you from having access to the customer account when logged in as a partner. If you have an account on the customer side, then you can log in as the customer, but our solution being multi-tiered and multi-tenanted, it does typically give you access when you log in as the partner to navigate down into your customer accounts, where in the self-service management mode, that is blocked from you. So I, in most cases, recommend switching to managed by service provider, particularly if you are a very hands-on service provider that is doing most of the management for your customers. Then there's the security settings. We have our two-factor authentication, which I recommend to leave on for protecting the account logins. It's very useful, right? And the next step is the enhanced security mode. Now, this has some implications in terms of functionality. So I, in most cases, recommend disabling it until you're more familiar with the platform. And you can read into what functionality it offers. But the gist of it is that it enforces backup encryption at the device level. And therefore, some of the more advanced functionalities are not possible because the console can't access the encryption password. So I recommend in most cases just leaving this disabled. All the encryption and stuff like that can be enabled granularly anywhere, and I'll show you how we can do that. The next step is we create the first administrator. So I'm just going to call it email backup.admin, right? Correctly. Now, I don't recommend using an email address for the login name, right? Just use a unique login name here and keep the email address here. So I'm going to use my Acronis email address quickly. And we can fill in the first name and last name if we want and choose the language. We support a wide range of languages with more coming. So I'm going to leave it on English for now, and we can then move on to the next steps. And here is where we start selecting the services that we're going to be offering. Now, our focus for today is on the cyber protection service, right, which it's called the protection service, which falls under cyber protect. But we do have two other services, the file sync and share and cyber notary services that can be offered from this platform either individually or bundled together with the rest of the offerings as well. So for now, I'm just going to disable it along with the physical data shipping because we're going to focus primarily on the protection service. And so now we can see how the platform and the services are structured. Now we have a standard product, which is the backup and recovery with some basic security and management features. But we also offer advanced packs, which add extra functionality as well. Now, for Microsoft 365, you don't require any of the advanced packs, right? If you want to do simple backup and recovery. However, you may want to look at something like the advanced email security to add the email security solution, to add email security rather, so anti-spam, anti-phishing, antivirus, business email compromise protection to your Microsoft 365 account as well. And that's also something that you can add to the platform. So from what you can see here, our solution is flexible to allow you to offer what you need, while also offering a wide range of advanced functionality that you can choose on a per customer basis what you want to offer to them, so that you're not paying for and offering services that the customer is never going to use. You just offer them what they need, and you can add more of the advanced packs later on as your customer requirements grow, etc. So as we can see here, we can also do different billing modes depending on what makes more sense for you. I'm going to leave it in the per workload model for now. Right, and move on to the next step where you're going to start customizing the actual offerings for the particular customer. Okay, so as you can see from our particular solution, we have under cyber protection, we have two different billing modes. You can select per workload or per gigabyte. And we also have this product split up into the standard offering, which includes your backup and recovery. All right, as well as your basic security, so some basic antivirus and anti-malware protection, as well as our excellent anti-ransomware solution with some monitoring and management functionality as well. To enhance on that, we also have some advanced packs into the platform as well, things like advanced backup, advanced management, etc. And because we're focusing on Microsoft 365 for the time being, we don't need any of the advanced packs to back up our Microsoft 365, but you may want to look at adding the advanced email security to add an email security offering as an upsell to your customers. This offers anti-phishing, anti-spam, antivirus, business email compromise, as well as zero-day threat protection to emails and email services such as Microsoft 365 and Exchange and other email services as well if you want. We believe in a multi-layer approach to protection, right? Your backup and recovery is always your last line of defense, right? But we want to try and stop any threats and anything from destroying, corrupting, or damaging your data as well. And so that's why we have this multi-layer protection. And so we enable email security, and we then move on to the next steps where we start customizing the features that we want to protect, or the types of devices rather that we want to protect for this particular customer. Now, as I mentioned, we have the standard protection, right? So we configure the standard protection here, where we choose the types of devices that we want to protect. Now, for our focus here, Microsoft 365, we don't need any of the other features such as mobile devices, web hosting servers, workstations, etc. So I'm going to untick them. And I'm also going to untick Google Workspace, websites, and hosted Exchange as well. Right, we focus here on the Microsoft 365. Now, we want to start setting a quota here. Now, this very much depends on the billing mode that you have. Right, but we want to say match the number of seats. Now, a seat is a licensed user that you're backing up, either a mailbox or a OneDrive or both, right? So it's not an individual seat for mailbox and an individual seat for OneDrive, but it's, if you're backing up one or the other or both, you choose a seat. So in my case, I'm going to say 25 seats for this particular customer. You have the option for overage, which allows them to go over by whatever number you set just a little bit before it, it's a hard cutoff on the quota side of things. In most cases, you don't really need an overage. So I'm going to leave that on 0. And for things like the SharePoint, sites and Microsoft Teams data, we don't necessarily need to set a seat because of how the billing model works, set a quota because of how the billing model works, but you can if you want to as well. From there, we can configure the email security here. This should match the number of mailboxes that you wish to protect. Now, of course, you don't have to protect every mailbox, right? But in my case, I'm going to set number of seats to match the number of mailboxes that I have. Then we want to go and set how much cloud storage that we have. So we don't need any disaster recovery for now because we don't have any devices to do disaster recovery. But we want some cloud storage. Now we want to set a quota here. I'm going to set 500 gigabytes in this case, right? Just to make sure that we don't have any runaway costs, right? And it's going to match what you're selling to the customer as well. And I'm going to disable local storage because we are doing pure cloud to cloud backups, which means we back up directly from Microsoft 365 directly to the Acronis cloud. So we don't need to worry about any local storage. Right. Once that's all done, I just want to review everything. We've got our seats, we've got our email security protection and our cloud, and we are comfortable with what we've got on offer. And we're going to then share, click done, and the customer is then going to be created within our console. All right, so the account is immediately created, and we've got our email backup customer here that's been created. So we can now quickly take a look at that they've created in trial. We can get a nice overview just to also, again, review that we've done everything correctly. And if we've made any mistakes, or if we want to add new services, we can quickly edit this, turn on and off what we've what devices we want to add now, or if we need to increase, maybe made a mistake here. They told me they were 25, but now there's actually 30. So let's just increase that to 30. We go here, increase that to 30 as well, and we can click save. So it's pretty easy for you to edit at a later stage as well. A great thing about it as well is as they grow, maybe the company starts with 10 users, but in a year's time, they're doing well. They've onboarded another 15 people. Now they want to protect them. It's pretty easy just to come in here, increase the quota, and they have that service immediately available to them to protect those extra 15 people as well. But similarly, as new services get added to the platform, we can turn them on and off as we need to, depending on what we want to offer to the customer as well. Okay. Now, because the customer here, we've created email backup customer, they're created in managed by service provider mode. right? Their name is a nice blue hyperlink that I can click on, which will take me to their customer account. Of course, because if we take a look at company A here, where I have no access, that is because this customer is self-service managed. So that's just a quick overview of what the difference is. We can still modify them, much like we can do with the other customers. We can edit their quotas, we can edit their services, etc. We just can't navigate down into their account. Now, of course, the first thing we want to do is go into their customer account. So I'm going to click on their name, and it's going to take me directly into their account. And here we see the customers management console, where we can get a nice overview of their license. We can get a nice overview of their operations. It's not going to be anything to see here because we don't have any devices added. So it's going to tell us to add a device, which we can then click on, take us to the protection console, etc. We can also see the users for that customer. Now, this particular user, I've received an email asking me to activate this account, right? But I haven't activated the account yet. So it's showing inactive, but you can also add more users for that particular customer as well. You can add a user who is a company administrator, which has administrator access to both the management portal and the protection portal. Or you can add a user who is just an administrator or read-only administrator to the management portal, which is what we're looking at here. Or an administrator, a user, a read-only administrator, or a restore operator to the protection portal, depending on what kind of user role that you need.
Very, very granular. That's fantastic.
Okay. We now want to go ahead and quickly onboard the Microsoft 365. And so to do that, we need to go into what we call the protection console. And to do that, we click on Manage Service, and that'll take us directly into the protection console. You can navigate directly into the protection console straight from the partner level management console, but I just wanted to show you the steps of the different levels of access. Okay, now we have no devices added, and so we get prompted again to add a device, and I'll take us through that process very quickly. Right, I just wanted to quickly highlight the UI as an overview. Right, on the left-hand side is all the different sections that we can manage and navigate, whether it's managing our devices, managing our protection plans, our email security, our protection for our antivirus, etc., our backup storage, configuring reports, and basic settings. As we are logged in as a partner, we have this little drop-down menu that allows us to navigate between different customers that we have access to. It allows for much more simplified management, right? So we can quickly move from one customer to the other without having to log in and log out as different customers, or move through different menus. We can just click on that drop-down, go to the next one. Okay, so let's add a device. And even though it's Microsoft 365, we still call it a device, right? So what we're going to do is click Add Devices. From the left-hand side, or rather the right-hand side, it's going to show us what types of agents we have available to us. Now, you can see I've only got one type of agent available to me. And that's because I only have the Microsoft 365 enabled for my customer. If I added workstations and servers, I would be able to download and deploy the workstation or server license agents as well. But for now, we're going to do the Microsoft 365 for Business account. Now, it's important to note that we have two different types of agents. Our most featured agent is the cloud-to-cloud agent, which is what we're going to be using in our demonstration. But we also have a local agent that you can install locally on a Windows system to do backup of mailboxes only. And the difference is on the Microsoft 365 cloud-to-cloud agent, we can back up the mailboxes, the SharePoint, the Teams, and the OneDrive as well. But it can only back up to cloud storage, whereas the local agent can back up mailboxes to local storage if you want, but it only supports mailboxes. That's just the difference there. Let's click here on the Microsoft 365 for Business. Right, this is our cloud-to-cloud agents. It's now going to take us to Microsoft's web portal. And here I've got a few accounts logged in, right? So I'm just going to select use another account. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my demo account, which is info@safecloud.co.za. And I'm going to log in as a user who has global admin rights to that particular account. All right. Now, it's important to note that we don't store the credentials for this account anywhere. What we're doing is just creating a link between the accounts at an application level, and so that if the user account is removed or the password is changed, it won't affect the backups going forward. Right, my passwords are all saved because I use a password management service. So that's quite nice and easy. And here it's going to just give us a list of the permissions that it requires for this particular application. Right. Obviously, you can go through this in a bit more detail, but it does need the ability to read and write the information from the account and write information to the account when you're doing recoveries. We're going to accept those permissions, and it's going to then take us back to the Acronis console. It may take a few seconds for everything to load and the information to start populating, but we should see that pretty soon. Right. It's going to move from no devices. Okay. It's now going to ask us what we wish to protect. I'm going to exit out here for now and just show you that it's already populated my Safe Cloud account. And we can see we've got our SharePoint groups. Right, we can see there's a folder of all groups. We can expand that further to see the different groups that we've created within the organization. We've got our public folders. I don't actually have any public folders, so it's not going to show anything here. We've got our SharePoint sites as well. We can view all sites. Right, we can see the individual sites if we want to back up individual sites. Similarly with teams, we've got all teams, or we can navigate into individual teams and our users as well. Right. We can see all our users. All users folder contains all our users. Now, from here, we want to start creating a protection policy. And I'm going to focus on creating a mailbox backup for all my, my users, right? Now, we can create a mailbox backup at a folder level or at an individual level. So I could, for instance, let's start at the bottom and work our way up. I could select an individual user and create a backup for them. I could tick all the users and create a backup, or I could create a backup at this all users level, which means that any new user that gets added automatically inherits that backup plan. But that's what I'm going to do for the mailbox backup at this stage. I'm going to create a mailbox backup for all my users. And I'm going to explain the reason why I'm doing it when we go to the OneDrive backup. So I'm going to add a backup plan. It's going to be a Microsoft 365 backup. I'm going to leave the default name, but you can rename it if you want to, right? We're going to select what to backup. Now, in my case, I'm going to leave it on Microsoft 365 mailboxes. And the reason for that is because not all my users have OneDrive, and so it's not going to allow me to back up if I don't have OneDrive for all my users. We don't have a choice of where to back up because we're doing cloud to cloud only, which means we're backing up directly from the Microsoft data center to the Acronis data center. We have a fixed schedule at this stage, right? Backing up once a day with the ability to add more backup scheduling coming soon at a later stage. This is largely due to a rate limiting on the Microsoft side. So we don't hammer their services, they limit us, and we're working with them to resolve that. Then we can choose how long to keep. Now, this is something that's very important because you can choose and you have control over exactly how long to keep your backups for. You can do it by age, you can do it by number of backups, or you can keep your backups indefinitely. And you can change your backups set to monthly, weekly, daily, or you can configure a single plan for all backups, right? This is the option that you have here. So obviously, this determines what your recovery point objectives are. And so in this default setting, after 6 months of backups, I will be able to recover for every day for the last 7 days, every week for the last 4 weeks, and every month for the last 6 months, right? And you have the flexibility to choose how you want to keep that if you want to as well. I'm going to leave the default now, keep the backup cleanup plan after backup, which is what I recommend, but you can set it up to clean up before the backup if you want. So obviously, to ensure that you don't run out of space and that you're only keeping backups for as long as you need to, right? Maybe you have a legal requirement to only keep backups for a year or whatever it is. What the cleanup task will do is basically remove backups that fall outside of the retention policy that you've set. What it does is it doesn't do a strict deletion in the typical sense. It does what's known as a roll up job. Let's say, take for instance the daily backups. We're doing 7 days of we're keeping 7 days of daily backups, which means once we get to day 8, what it will do is it will roll up the changes from the previous day 7. Or rather, when we get to day 8, will create a new backup on day 8, which becomes the newest backup. It'll take the oldest backup and roll those changes into the next one in the line. So that would previously have been day 6. And then any difference between those two backups of previous day 7 and day 6 will then be lost, but you'll still have you'll be able to recover at the point in time for the last 7 days effectively. So yeah, it's not just a strict deletion of all the data on day 7. It's just it rolls those changes into the next day, and then removes the difference between those 2 days. All right. We want to make sure we were backing up the archive mailbox as well. That's an option if you want, right? You can turn it off. And then we want to choose whether we can do, we want to do encrypt the backup or not. Now, my recommendation is to encrypt backups, especially for important data that might contain personal information like Microsoft 365, etc. And if you turn that on, it's going to request a password. Right, and you need to enter those passwords. You can choose the encryption algorithm, whether it's AES 128 all the way up to AES 1256. I'm going to choose that because it's pretty strong encryption there. Leave that on, and then we have the option here at the gear wheel to select some options here. Now, there's not a lot of options from a backup perspective, but there is the option here for the file name template as well. So you can change how the backup file name looks if you want to as well. It's also useful if you want to continue backing up to an existing archive. So if you create a new plan, but you want to continue writing to that existing archive, rather than creating a new archive, you can leverage this file name template to make sure that you match that existing archive as well. Now, once this is done, I'm going to click apply, and it's going to apply protection to all those devices. All right. We will have an option to run now pretty soon, but it's still applying that plan. So let's go ahead and take a look at our users, and we should see that, okay, now we've got the backup scheduled. All right, so I click group backup, right? It's still not loaded there, but let's take a look at one particular user and see if we can run a backup on one user. So I'm just going to kick off the backup on this one user quickly. Right, it's going to manually run this backup. And we should start seeing the backup task running. If we want to, we can go click on activities, and we see the activities not starting yet. Okay, so backup. Let's run it. Starting backup. Check. It shouldn't have taken that quick. All right, no, I beg your pardon. It would take that quick on that user because they don't have any mailbox items. So let's take a look at this user, Safe Cloud Admin, who does actually have a mailbox with some usage. Right, we click on their mailbox, and we should start seeing some activities, and you can see that there's a percentage. It's taking some time. I'm going to run some of the other users as well, just to kick them off as well, and we can then move on to backing up the other devices within our platform. Now, my Safe Cloud Admin user is the only one that has OneDrive enabled on them, so I'm going to create another plan to back up the OneDrive for that particular user. So I'm going to click backup. I'm going to add a backup plan, and I can create another mailbox backup plan if I want, but I'm going to select OneDrive. All right, I'm going to just change the name quickly here, OneDrive to cloud, and we can then go ahead and select pretty much the same settings we have, right? But it also should be noted that we have this option here of items to back up for OneDrive. Now, by default, it's going to back up all items, but you do have the choice to get pretty granular in terms of what you want to back up as well, right? You can select the entire OneDrive, a specific folder, or a specific file if you want to as well. I'm going to leave it on all just to leave it on the defaults. Similarly with these, I'm going to leave it on the default as well. Leave encryption off on this particular case just to show you the difference there and show you that the options are the same from a backup perspective. We apply this plan and it'll get applied to that specific user, and then I'm going to then kick off that backup as well. And it's going to take a bit of time to do the backup. So let's kick it off because it's a few gigabytes, right? But let's see if our Microsoft 365 plan is backed up. So we can now go ahead and see from a recovery perspective what we want to recover. Yeah, so while the OneDrive is backing up, I'm going to then talk a little bit about the recovery process for Microsoft 365. So I'm going to click on this user, and we have the option to recover the item. So I click recovery, right? I can filter by content, whether it's all items, OneDrive, or mailbox. I can see my recovery points. Now I only have one recovery point, right? In this case, if I was to run another backup, I'd have 2 recovery points, and over the course of time, I'll have multiple recovery points as well, right? From there, I can click recover, and I can recover the entire mailbox, or I can recover individual mailbox items. Now, from an entire mailbox perspective, I can recover back to the original mailbox user, or I can recover over an existing user, right? So as I said, if I want to recover someone else's mails so someone's onboarded, but they need to get the mails from someone else, you can then recover all their mails from an old user to a new user if you want to as well. And that's what I did for the server room mailbox. I actually recovered the Safe Cloud admin to server room just to generate some usage on that side of things. Okay, I'm not going to start a recovery now on this side, but I'm going to then go and show you what we can do from an email message mailbox perspective. Now, we take privacy pretty seriously, and because with the Microsoft 365 and particularly with mailbox backups, you do get access to view quite a bit of personal information when you're doing recoveries, right? So we do have this particular warning and also logging of exactly who and what was recovered during the recovery process. On top of that, we also have a special user called a restore operator who can do mailbox recoveries without having access to view that data. I'm going to proceed, and we're going to then see our mailbox item, our mailbox laid out. Now, because it's an encrypted password, encrypted account, I can't see anything until I've entered in the encryption key to make sure that I am permitted to have access. But yeah, we can see the entire mailbox. We can see the calendars, right? Contacts, tasks, etc. All of these things are individually recoverable. From a mailbox item, right? We can see here what we have. Not sure where all half these messages are coming from, but let's go and see here. We can see this particular email. We can recover this email, right? So starting from the bottom, moving up, we can recover it to a new user, to the original user, to the original location, or to a new location. So maybe recovered items, you push it down to recovered items. We can also push this email out as a email. So we can email it to someone. Maybe they need to, from legal or some compliance reason, someone needs to actually get this email. You can push it directly from the backup to that person who needs to get that email with a message explaining why they've got this, been sent this email. On top of that, you also have the ability to show the contents as well. All right. So this is just an email from Microsoft, so not very important. Okay. Well, it's telling me about end of life, but nothing I need to worry about. This is also similar for what we've got here for calendar items, right? We got the similar options, contacts, as well as tasks that we can then recover or show the content for a task as well. Right. very granular protection that you have. Right, so moving out from there, I just want to see if okay, so that's going to take a bit of time to complete. The other option to browse our backups is to go to backup storage. And here we can see we've got a section called Cloud Applications Backup. And we can see all our encrypted mailboxes, as well as our OneDrive, which is not yet complete. So it's got a little 65 kilobyte placeholder there. Right, and we can see our various other mailboxes that we have available here from a protection. We can click on them, for instance, show our backups, perform the same level of recovery as well. As we get some nice insight there as well. Moving back up to the devices section under the Microsoft 365, we can also then go ahead and protect our SharePoint sites. I'm going to select all my SharePoint sites, create a very default backup plan for them. Right. I'm going to leave this all on default, click apply, and then run these plans. Right, and I'll show you somewhere else where you can also manage our protection plans as well. So now we've created the plans for these devices. We're going to run them now quickly just to tick them off. But we can also go ahead and look under management to view our cloud application backup plans. And you can also create plans here if we want as well. So here we can see all the 3 plans that we've created. We can also create a new plan here, right? Choose what we want to back up, choose which devices to apply it to. And in devices cases, it's which type of user we wish to apply it to, etc. Okay. So now we've got things backed up and protected. We can go ahead and look at our overview, and we should have our dashboard that can start populating information. Now, this is the default dashboard, and so we can customize it to show what we want to see as well. So things like protection status, we might not want to see here, but alerts, summary of alerts, active alerts, our CyberFit score for Microsoft 365 is not going to be very relevant here. Right, I'm going to remove devices and vulnerabilities because we're just doing cloud-to-cloud backups as well as affected devices. But a lot of these widgets are applicable to our physical or virtual devices that we actually protecting with the agents, so your servers or workstations. Now we can add more widgets here as well. Right. Things like our devices, cloud applications backups, right? We can see here, it starts populating, shows us how protected they are, right? We can edit these in a little bit more detail. So we can show only devices that are protected and have, I have no errors or warnings, so I'm good here. We can also customize them in a little bit more detail if we want for our specific widgets to show the kind of information that we want to see. This is also very similar to our reporting. So jumping to the reports section, we've got some pre-configured reports that show you the breadth of the kind of protection that we have, right? Things like our daily activities, detected threats, discovered machines, etc. But we can also create customizable reports, either based on an existing template or a completely blank custom report. And it uses the same widgets that our dashboard uses to customize to show what we want to see. So in my case, I would add cloud applications, edit it to show what I want. So maybe I want not device type. Maybe I want to just see my users that are being backed up and group them by their protection status or last result, for instance. Right, so where they're backed up. You can see this one's backed up, this one's still waiting to be backed up, etc. And these can be downloaded, emailed on demand as Excel documents or PDF documents. And they can also be scheduled to be sent as Excel and or PDF documents to whoever needs to get them, whether get this information. So the nice thing about the difference between the Excel and the PDF document kind of looks like the widgets. So it's got the graphics, the nice constructed table, whereas the Excel document is the raw data effectively in. Each of the widgets comes in a separate sheet. Yeah, the Excel, you can then use that information for other reports, for instance. You can just copy the data out and put them somewhere else. Okay. Just want to see if our SharePoint, our OneDrive is, no, it's not yet finished. Okay. Right, we're still waiting for our OneDrive to complete here, but yeah, it's still 48%. It's a few tens or gigabytes, so it's probably going to take a bit of time. Now, that just shows just how easy it is to get onboarded and protected with your Microsoft 365. You can see that if I took out all my demonstration, showing and waffling on about various things, you can actually get a customer created and protected within 10-15 minutes of work. And it can go even faster if you are very familiar with the platform. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward to get up and running. And then it'll just continue running on its own and you monitor it as needed. And that kind of brings us to the end of the Microsoft 365 quick demo and introduction.